So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my iPhone 16e honest review after 1 week. Now I'm going to tell you honestly everything I think about this phone in this video, and by the end of this video you're going to have even more information if you've already been doing your research on whether this is going to be the phone for you. So let's talk about the price and the value of this phone. So if you do want to pick this phone up, it is going to run you $599 plus tax, and that is the starting price. This actually goes up from there. So if you are looking for a 16e, and cleverly enough Apple hasn't put it at the front, they're still putting the 16 at the front, clearly letting you know this is not the top version. So if we hit buy, we'll go down here. We have two separate colors, black and white, and then you can see it can go all the way up to $899 plus tax for 512 gig. Now you're basically just paying for storage there, but that is a huge amount to pay for extra storage. This phone over 900, not a chance. Definitely not. I only think the one that is worth buying is the base model if you are going to buy it, and it should be definitely $100 less than they started charging for this. So for $599, this is already overpriced in my opinion. I think this should have been $499. Maybe the next storage tier up, $599, and the maxing out at $699, but that's not the way it is. So to me, clearly this phone is overpriced, and I'll tell you why throughout this video. The design though, I do like that it's clean. I like that it's simple. I do like the single camera look. Don't get it twisted, but there's so many cons to having a single camera in terms of no ultra wide, well, you do get the zoom, but you don't get like extended zoom like a telephoto. But definitely the clean look to it is a really good thing, but this camera is a sacrifice for sure. It's pretty evident. Also, somebody pointed out that this white doesn't look that premium. You can barely see the Apple logo. I tend to agree a little bit. It does look like a little bit of a cheaper frosted look on the back. Not my favorite white they've done. I do think the white on the iPhone 11 looked better than this for sure, but you know, you might be upgrading from that. This is pure white, but it's kind of like a frosted look to me. This is what I'm seeing right here. Definitely the back to me kind of looks cheap. It really does. It feels like I could just go get this at like a mall, you know, where they like replace backs on a phone, just like quick, just place it on there and be done with it. Like this doesn't look premium. I don't know how to describe it. This back just looks very plain and old. It's just definitely not super like, just doesn't feel very Apple. It feels kind of like a bin part that they just put on here, but at the same time, it's not like a cheap like material itself. Like it doesn't feel like some cheap plastic phone, nothing like that. It's still got that Apple aluminum and stuff like that. Now the edges, I do like. The silver on the edges are pretty clean. I will say though that the action button is a nice upgrade. If you do want to get this phone, it is a definite upgrade over the older silent switch because you can customize that button. So it's definitely a nice little change if you go to this 16. But the design overall is still has some good things to it. Like it does feel nice and light. I do really love the weight of this phone. It is the lightest in the lineup. I don't love the corners in this phone. They're just simply not as nice feeling as the iPhone 16, which just feels smoother in the edges. So this digs into your palm a little bit more. If you are going to be using this without a case, you'll definitely notice that the base 16 has a nicer feel, as does the iPhone 16 Plus. So this one, not the most comfortable, but I'd still say it's more comfortable than the 13 or the 14. Those phones had even a little bit less comfortable feel. They were also a little bit heavier as well. So this one is an improvement over those, but definitely not nicer than the iPhone 16 or the regular 15. Overall, it kind of has a mixture of old and new. It's just like it seems like a Frankenstein phone. It just has all these different mixtures. Like it has the newer chip, it has the older notch, it has like an iPhone 16 action button, but an iPhone 13 like feel. It has an older single camera like a 10R, but with an iPhone 16 type sensor. It's a little bit smaller sensor, but you get what I'm saying. It's like all this mishmash. It doesn't really feel like it has its own unique identity. It just feels like they took a bunch of parts from different phones and recycled materials, which is okay, and then they put it all together and just here's your 16e. It doesn't feel very inspiring or like I just gotta have that. It doesn't kind of feel like that. It just feels like, oh well, I need a new iPhone. I just cracked mine. What's the cheapest you got? Or you know, I'm trying to get my kid an iPhone for his birthday or for Christmas or whatever, and Can we just go ahead and pick this up? It's something like that. That's kind of how this feels. One of the things I do like about this design is it doesn't rock on the table too much. A little bit up in that left corner, but if you're like, this is one of the best iPhones now to place on the table if you're just going to be typing one finger while you're eating, your Twinkie or whatever. You can go ahead and do that really easily. Now, on the front display, when I first seen this, I was like, oh no, did I just buy myself another 14? Yes, I probably did. I bought myself basically another 14. So this phone has a similar display to that. It is 60 hertz. It does have really good color balance. Most iPhones displays do have really good color accuracy. They have a nice balance between saturated and a natural look. I would say they edge more towards a natural look versus a very vivid look. They're more of a toned down, but not super toned down. It's kind of like somewhere right in the middle, because you don't really have a natural or vivid mode you can select from. You can change it in some accessibility settings, but generally this display seems to look very good, I think. For most people, I think they're going to enjoy it. The notch does get in the way, as does other notch iPhones and dynamic island iPhones. That is something to keep in mind. But the brightness is something I had some questions about and from some viewers. And yes, the brightness is definitely higher than some of the older iPhones out there, like 12, 10R, the 11, the 13 is kind of similar to this. But this definitely can be seen outdoors. It's not the easiest though compared to some of the higher end versions, but it's still a decent level of brightness over here on this phone, around 800 nits, and it could peak around 1300 outdoors. So it's solid. It'll get the job done. It's just not like overly bright. So do keep that in mind. It also is plenty sharp enough. You're not going to have an issue with pixels per inch, but Apple didn't include anything new here either. So if you're used to seeing iPhone displays over the past 5 years, this one you're not going to be too overly impressed by. In addition, it does have thicker bezels than you'll find on the base 16. I think it even has thicker bezels in the 15. So you can see right here, if we take a look at this phone, and then I showcase to you my iPhone 16, you'll see that this one does have definitely thicker bezels than the 16. It's not super noticeable, but it's definitely something that's there for sure. So just a little detail I did notice about this. Of course, you'll get your typical true tone, dark mode, night shift, customize the icons on here just like any other iOS product. So that'll work out well for you. Now, the question is 60 hertz really an issue here? And it may bother some people. It's definitely an issue, I would say, versus competitors. Like if you want to stack this up next to a competitor. However, Apple doesn't seem to care. They continue to put out 60 hertz phones year after year. And I don't know when this trend is going to stop because they're basically the last ones doing this at this price range. Almost no other competitor puts this on the phone anymore, and that's why I think a lot of people do complain, especially in the tech community. Everybody knows that this is like old tech, but at the same time I do feel like the target buyer still doesn't care. I understand you're saying, Nick, bro, that's not an excuse. Well, you got to understand the viewers who are watching tech videos, they understand this, but the actual buyer, which is probably not me and you, are definitely going to not care, more than likely. I can tell you that for a fact because I know people buy iPhones regularly in my life that are just not into tech and they do not really care. I tell them it doesn't have promotion, right? What the heck is that? They don't even know what it is, honestly. And if you think Apple doesn't know this, think again. They definitely know I'm pretty sure Apple knows their buyer better than me and you and everybody else you talk to about tech does. I think they do a little bit more R&D than we do. So don't sleep on the fact that people are still going to buy this anyway. This is going to be probably a hot holiday seller and something that they can sell you to if you are not in the budget for a higher iPhone. So it has a place, is what I'm saying. It has a place on the shelves, but does it excite the tech enthusiasts? No. Does it need 120 hertz? I would say probably not for this one, but it definitely needs a lower price though. That it does need. The regular 16 and 17's coming. Well, the 16's already here, but the 17's coming. They really need to get promotionary. Now that the E is around, they could just keep this as a 60 hertz. When it comes to the software, it's basically the same exact thing as the iPhone 16. We even now have Apple Intelligence on the E model, not the SE, but the 16E has it right here, which is one of the major selling points. It's the cheapest way for an iPhone to get into iOS. on a new iPhone. Of course, you could say, well, I can go buy an old 15 Pro. I found it cheaper than this. Yes, so it's used secondhand. I get it. And maybe some iPads, for example, maybe a little bit cheaper, can get you an Apple Intelligence. I'm talking about a brand new iPhone in store or in your carrier, whatever. This is probably the cheapest way you're going to get there. In addition, they don't have a camera control button, but they do have a software button to use visual intelligence, which basically learns about objects via the camera and helps you out there. So if you are looking for, the AI and you want it at a cheaper price tag, this is going to be the best way you're going to go ahead and get it on the iPhone with the iPhone 16e. It really is. So that's a good thing, I would say, for those of you who are really interested in Apple Intelligence. But honestly, based on the comments I've been reading, it doesn't seem to be a hot selling point for everyone just yet. Like, it's like some people are like, I don't really care about that, or it's nice, but I just use a different app. Like, not everybody seems to be like, it still seems like it's in its infancy. Like, it's just, it even says it there. If you go to settings, beta. So like, it's still in the early stages, but they're definitely setting up the lineup to where everything is going to have Apple Intelligence, although they just launched another iPad without it. So maybe we got a year or two, and then every single iPhone Apple product is going to be Apple Intelligence. Now, when it comes to performance, you've seen a couple of my speed tests already. Likely, if you haven't checked them out, I did the 16 versus this phone, the latest Galaxy S25. And essentially what I can say is this phone is blazing fast, just like the iPhone 16 models. But it's let down by, well, of course, again, the 60 hertz doesn't make it feel as fast as it could feel. But in addition to that, it's let down by the 4-core GPU, which is less than the 5-core in the 16 and less than the 6-core in the 16 Pro. I know they had to make cuts somewhere, but there's another thing I don't like about this phone. I've noticed when I'm playing games, it does get a little warmer than I would like. But the A18 chipset is still a powerhouse. And if you take a look at some of my recent results here, you'll see that it actually is pulling in near MacBook level scores, well, older MacBook level scores. So this is a true beast here, but at the same time, it's not the true powerhouse in your pocket because, it doesn't have the best GPU and it doesn't have the best overall gaming performance. So I would say this is a very fast beast, definitely for casual users. Let's say it's the powerhouse for casual users. That's what it is. It's not the powerhouse phone though overall for, heavy users, I would say. That's still going to be the Pro. That's still going to be maybe the 16 Plus. The 16 is just a little bit better than this one though, overall. So definitely I would say Pro, Pro Max, 16 Plus, those are all probably a little bit better for heavier users. But overall, the chip is still outscoring a lot of Android phones, especially in that single core. The CPU daily is still going to be really good. It definitely has enough performance to keep you going for the next 5 years. So this is a really, really fast phone, but it cuts back on, for the heavier users, the GPU and the 120 hertz. Things of that sort. Now let's move it on over here to the camera. This is one of the biggest topics of this phone that everybody likes to knock on. No ultra wide. So if you're trying to back it out wide, goodbye, you lost a feature. That's just something on Apple like. Usually we don't lose that area. Like the camera, we haven't been losing features. We've been only gaining a little bit. Even if it's a slight bit, we've only been gaining over the years, but this is the first time in a while we've been losing features. And I say losing as if like we lost the camera from the SE. No, I'm not comparing this to the SE, because while they are calling this an E model, this is actually more like a 13 or a 14 shape and size. So I tend to think that this is a step back. I feel like they could have put an ultra wide on here, even if they put it like straight down or to the side, something like right there. It could have been a lesser sensor quality than even the one on the 16, but I'm guessing they think that if they put a second camera, nobody's buying the 16. I don't think so. I feel like if it still had this design, people are still going to buy the 16 because it looks newer, it looks better. It's just an overall nicer looking phone. But the actual camera quality itself, in good lighting, is not going to be too substantially different from the iPhone 16. It does have a smaller sensor, so at nighttime you will notice a difference. Also, the video quality, as always with iPhones, it's a pretty great setup. Super smooth, great focus, and I think you'll have a great time here. You'll see no cinematic mode on board, so it's a basic iPhone camera, but basic on iPhone is pretty solid. They have solid setup here on the front as well, so you're not really getting horrible anything. 4K 60 on both sides. That's pretty flagship level when we're talking about video quality. Overall, I wouldn't say I'm blown away by the camera. That would just be a straight up lie. But I will say that it's acceptable for this phone. At the price though, especially in those higher storage tiers, definitely not. I think this is a $499 phone. I really do. And that's it. No more, no less. $499, done. Maybe $550 if you had like a higher storage tier. So for me, my pricing would be $499, $128, $549 for $256. And then I would cut it off there. That would be my pricing strategy. Let me know if you agree with that down below. When it comes to battery life, this phone is probably going to be your best option if you're not buying a 16 Plus or a Pro Max. This is succeeding or beating the iPhone 16, and it also is beating the iPhone 16. Well, it's not beating the 16 Pro, but it's basically right there. So if you're looking for a phone that gives you top level battery life, but you don't have to have a large phone, this is definitely one to consider. And the way they were able to do this was they increased the battery size. Now, I'm wondering if they were able to do that because they put a single camera, making more space in there for a larger battery. This does have a pretty large 4,000 plus milliamp hour battery. In addition, the C1 modem, Apple is getting their whole phone more tightly controlled, and they were able to get more battery life out of this phone. Now, that is actually making me excited for something in the future, because if they're going to be putting C1 in here, they go in the future, they go C2, C3, they start like really improving the efficiency and performance and controlling that more. We're going to see probably much better extended battery life on the next Max models. Honestly, if they could do this on this size, imagine how many more hours we might be able to get on the upcoming Max and Plus phones. Or, well, Plus is going to be gone. It's probably going Air, but you get what I'm saying. Like if they're doing that here on this 6 point, it's kind of like letting you know for the future to get excited about what's to come with that, because this one's already pretty amazing, especially if you're coming and upgrading from a 12, a 10R, 11, 13. This phone blows those phones away in battery life. It's definitely an all-day phone for sure. Now, connectivity, this is a USB-C, but it is a slow 2.0 port. So not very fast, but at least USB-C, getting it more universal standard. No more Lightning here. We also do have ourselves C1 like we talked about, which is pretty decent. It had worse download than some Qualcomm modems I tested, but pretty similar in other areas. In addition, this is not going to transfer your files very fast because that 2.0, and there's no display port, so don't expect to plug this into monitors and stuff like that. This is not the phone for that. So I think I covered pretty much everything I want to talk about here with this phone. Did I like it? Honestly, yes, I did like it for what its target market is. As a tech enthusiast, not a chance. When I first seen this, my tech enthusiast nature just went, oh my goodness, what did I just buy? Another 14? But I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to be honest about how I feel about this phone. And honestly, like, I just think they missed the mark on the price. It's just a little bit too high. Seriously. Do I still think they'll sell a ton? Absolutely, because it's Apple. Apple gets away with that versus some other brands, because they know the value of their ecosystem. They have a very loyal fan base, and there's nothing wrong about, buying a phone you like. And if some people like this simple design, that'll be fine. It's also, I don't even think they're trying to sell this to a tech enthusiast, which is why you're probably not seeing over amount of interest in this phone on YouTube, which is where tech enthusiasts go to watch some of their favorite tech channels, and probably including mine, which I really appreciate and grateful for. But you got to think about the person who's buying this. They're going in the store, give me the cheapest iPhone you got. Done. It's a done deal. And some people are not going to care about the things I talked about here because they just don't care about those cons. And I go like this, cons, because they're not cons to everybody. I'm just one person with one perspective. And I hope you enjoyed the review. You enjoyed the video. But to me, there's just nothing overly inspiring about this phone. I don't pick up this phone and say in 1 year I'm going to look at this and be like, this phone is amazing. No, I'm just going to pick this up and say, it's an iPhone. It's cool. It works. It's fine. Whatever. That's kind of how I feel about this. If I had to give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, I give it a 6. I had to take multiple points off for multiple things that they didn't include, like an ultra wide camera. It doesn't have a display port. We could go on and on. There's multiple different areas that knock the score down. I could actually went lower. I was thinking about a 5 out of 10. But I do think because it has good performance, but it's like half of good as what like the 16 is, I would say I'd give it a 6 out of 10. So that's it for me. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to be well, and peace.